Monica Daniels had worked hard all her life to get where she was. At 48, she finally owned the home of her dreams, a sleek, modern house in Scottsdale, Arizona, surrounded by a high-privacy fence and a swimming pool that sparkled in the sun. Every square inch of the place was the result of long nights of work and years of dedication. But not everyone seemed to appreciate it. It started small. An unfamiliar towel lying carelessly on the couch, a glass of red wine left on the porch. At first Monica thought it was a careless gardener, or a gust of wind blowing things from a neighbor's house. But then the signs became more obvious. Wet footprints near the edge of the pool. More and more items that weren't hers. And then one morning, the truth came out. Monica was sipping her morning coffee, eyes scanning emails, when she happened to glance out the window and almost dropped her cup. A strange woman was lounging on a chaise lounge by her pool, as comfortable as if she were at a resort. She was wearing sunglasses, flipping through a magazine, and a nearly empty glass of wine was beside her. Monica couldn't believe her eyes. Who had the nerve to sneak into their backyard and act like it belonged there? She decided to observe rather than confront them outright. Over the next few days, she noticed the woman appearing frequently, sneaking into the yard, sipping wine by the pool like she owned it. And then, one long swim had consequences. It was a cold day, but the woman jumped in anyway. Monica watched from inside the house, waiting to see what would happen. After a while, the stranger began coughing and shivering. The next day, Monica heard rumors from the neighbors that a woman in the neighborhood had caught a cold, was very ill, and had even been humiliated by her poor health in the following days. Monica just smiled. This house was her creation, and no one had the right to take even the smallest corner of it. She decided that it was time to tighten the security, and end these days of unreasonable intrusions. Monica pushed open the back door, her voice as sharp as a knife. "Excuse me, what the hell are you doing?" The woman didn't even flinch. She turned her head lazily, pushed up her sunglasses, and flashed a leisurely smile. "Oh, hi. I didn't think you'd mind. It's so hot today." Monica's blood boiled. She'd seen this woman around before, always waving stiffly as she passed. But they'd never had a real conversation. And now she was sprawled out on her lawn, acting like it was a shared amenity. "I don't mind," Monica interrupted, her voice cold. "This is my house, my pool. You need to leave." The woman sighed dramatically, like a teenager being made to do chores. Okay. No need to be so hostile." She picked up her things without any hurry, as if she were doing Monica a favor by leaving. Monica watched her walk to the house next door, and for the first time she learned the woman's name, Allison Callahan. But Allison's departure that day meant nothing. 2 days later, she returned. When Monica returned home from running an errand, she immediately discovered a half-empty bottle of rose on the poolside table. The condensation was still fresh, and wet footprints were clearly visible on the wooden floor. Her patience was completely exhausted. This was no longer a harmless misunderstanding. Allison knew exactly what she was doing. Monica walked over and rang the neighbor's doorbell, her arms crossed over her chest, her eyes sharp. When Allison opened the door, she had the nerve to act surprised, as if she didn't know anything. "Oh, hello. What's up?" Allison's voice was soft, but Monica wasn't fooled. "You know exactly what it is," Monica shot back, her tone sharp. "I don't know what kind of entitlement makes you think my backyard is yours, but that ends right there." Allison chuckled, the kind that made it sound like it was all a harmless joke. "Oh, come on, it's just a pool. I'm not hurting anyone." Monica took a deep breath, trying to stay calm and choose her words carefully. "You don't seem to understand the concept of boundaries, so let me make this clear: stay out of my yard." A flash of irritation crossed Allison's face, but she quickly covered it up by holding up her hands in a gesture of surrender. Good, I got the message." But Monica wasn't naive. There was no sincerity in the apology, and she knew it. And as if to prove Monica right, the next time she came home from work, the sight before her set her anger ablaze. A wet couch and an empty wine glass sat like a slap in the face. This wasn't just disrespect, it was a challenge. And Monica Daniels wasn't the type to be bullied. She'd dealt with her fair share of people in her life, co-workers who took credit for her work, bosses who underestimated her abilities, strangers who rushed to judgment before she'd even said a word. Monica knew how to stand up for herself. But this time, Allison Callahan had crossed the line. And Monica wasn't about to let it continue. Monica tried to handle it the way any reasonable person would. She'd put up a private property, with a no trespassing sign right next to the pool gate, as if a 6-foot fence wasn't obvious enough. But that didn't work. The next time she went outside, the sign was face down in the grass, like someone had knocked it down on purpose. Okay, fine. Maybe Allison hadn't seen it. So Monica took it a step further. She installed a padlock on the gate to the backyard. Simple. Problem solved, or so she thought. A few days later, Monica pulled into her driveway after a long day at work. The summer heat was still in the air, and she'd pictured kicking off her shoes, pouring herself a glass of wine, and winding down for the evening. But then she saw it. Through the bars of the backyard fence, a flash of light moved. Monica clutched her car keys. No way. She rushed around the side of the house, threw open the gate, and there was Allison. Allison was floating in the pool. She had the audacity to look relaxed, her arms stretched out along the water's edge, her face tilted toward the sun as if she were on vacation. An empty bottle of wine sat on the side table, next to Monica's favorite glass, something she hadn't even taken out of the cupboard in weeks. Monica's pulse pounded in her ears. Allison opened her eyes lazily, then sighed again, as if Monica's presence were an unnecessary inconvenience. "Oh, hi," Allison said, unconcerned. "I didn't hear you come in." She shrugged, her wet hair tossed over her shoulders as if she had all the time in the world. "Of course, you're not allowed in here," Monica replied, her voice trying to stay calm but clearly seething. Allison pushed herself up onto the pool deck, wringing water from her long hair. "Relax, Monica. It's just a pool." The lightness of the statement added fuel to the fire. Monica took a deep breath, trying to control herself. "I'll say it for the last time, stay off my property, stay off my pool. If you ever set foot in here again, I'll call the police." Monica's voice shook with anger. Allison laughed as if Monica was making a joke. "You wouldn't. Calling the cops on me over a pool? That's too much, Monica." Allison's smirk was clear. "Try me," Monica said, her voice cold, pointing toward the gate. Allison paused, then stood, grabbed her towel, and walked away, but not out of the yard. She moved closer to Monica, too close and too smug. "You really should learn to share," Allison said, her voice syrupy. "Not everyone is as lucky as you." Monica clenched her fists. "Go away." Her voice was low but commanding. Allison smirked, slung her towel over her shoulder, and left the yard, as if she'd won something. Monica stood still, only exhaling when she heard the door close behind Allison. She locked it, bolted it, and immediately pulled out her phone. "Security cameras," she muttered. This wasn't over. 2 days later, the cameras were installed. Monica wasted no time. One pointed directly at the pool, another covered the gate, and a third watched the backyard. If Allison ever came near here again, Monica would have proof. The weekend came, and the real test began. On Saturday afternoon, Monica had plans, a day of pampering at the spa and a fancy dinner. She double-checked the gate locks and the camera system before leaving the house, telling herself that Allison wouldn't dare try again. She was wrong. That evening, returning home after a long day, Monica kicked off her slippers and opened the camera app. And there, clearly visible on the screen, was Allison, midday, walking across the yard like she owned the place. Towel in hand, lounging on a pool float, sipping wine and flipping through a magazine, completely at ease and uninhibited. Monica stared at the screen in disbelief. The playback was so clear it took her breath away. Allison had once again entered her yard, as casually as if it belonged there. But this time, the brazenness was at its peak. Just before she left, Allison turned, raised her glass, and smiled at the camera. It was at that moment that Monica felt her anger flare. She grabbed her keys, walked out of the house, and headed straight for the next door. A loud bang made the porch light flicker. It took a few seconds before the lock clicked, and then Allison Callahan appeared, wearing an ivory silk robe, her hair damp from towel drying. A smile played on her lips, an amusement that Monica couldn't bear. "Oh, hi," Allison said, as if nothing had happened. "What's up, Monica?" "Stop pretending," Monica snapped, holding the phone in front of Allison's face, playing the video again. "You think this is funny? Invading my property again?" Allison glanced at the screen, unconcerned. "Oh, relax, Monica. I'm just cooling off." "Cooling off? You're trespassing on my property." Allison rolled her eyes, her voice dripping with disdain. "Now, don't make such a big deal out of it. It was just a little fun." "Fun?" Monica smirked, but there was no humor in it. "Okay, Allison. You want to play a game, then play." She turned on her heel and walked away, trying to keep herself from doing anything stupid. But as she reached her front door, she swore this would be the last time. Allison Callahan would never again invade her property. Because next time, there would be consequences. And Allison would no longer laugh. Monica couldn't sleep that night. She lay in bed, staring wide-eyed at the ceiling, the image of Allison lifting her glass and smiling arrogantly haunting her. She'd had enough. By the time the sun rose, Monica had the perfect plan. Not dangerous, but definitely embarrassing for Allison. A quick trip to the local pool store had her all she needed, a strong but harmless food dye, and a pungent liquid made for pranks. The clerk glanced at her curiously as she checked out the bill, but Monica just smiled. Back home, she mixed a generous amount into the pool water. It was completely invisible, wouldn't mess with the filtration system, but most importantly, it clung to her skin and hair for hours. If Allison stepped into the pool, she'd wear it like a badge of shame. And then Monica waited. It was a hot, humid Saturday, the perfect day for swimming. She left in the afternoon as usual, parking down the street, her heart pounding with the prospect of victory. Allison hesitated when she noticed Monica's driveway was empty. Thinking Monica wasn't home, she smiled contentedly. It wasn't long before noon, when Allison slipped through the fence of the neighboring yard with a pair of sunglasses and a bottle of rose in hand. Without bothering to check, without knocking, she casually stepped into the yard, set down her things, and slid into the pool as if it were her own. For a few minutes, Allison was floating on a lounge chair in the middle of the pool, soaking up the sun. But then she sat up with a scowl, looking down at her arms. The air around her had changed. A deep, dark ink stain was spreading across her chest, arms, and hair, clinging to her like an oil slick. The stench quickly filled the air, a heady mix of rotten eggs and skunk spray. Allison screamed in panic, gagging at the horrible smell. She rushed out of the pool, slipping and falling as she tried to reach for a towel. But the stench didn't go away, and the black dye clung to her skin and refused to fade. Monica watched from down the street, driving slowly toward her house. When she stepped out with her arms crossed, Allison was frantically scrubbing at her skin. "Is something wrong?" Monica asked, her voice calm but tinged with amusement. Allison spun around, furious. "What did you do?" Monica tilted her head, her eyes sparkling with mischief. "Oh, I didn't do anything. Maybe you used some cheap sunscreen." Allison fumed, her blonde hair drenched and her arms blackened with the stench of rot. Without bothering to retrieve the bottle, she stormed through the gate, walking quickly toward her house without looking back. Monica just stood there, smiling, knowing that Allison Callahan had finally learned her lesson. But she also knew that the real consequences were yet to come. When Allison reached her front door, she yanked it open and slammed it shut behind her. But the stench and dye still clung to her every pore. Her golden hair was pale, unnaturally colored, and the smell followed her like a lingering cloud. Outside, Monica had not left. She leaned against the fence, arms crossed, savoring the moment of triumph. Then, just as she turned to leave, a scream of horror rang out from inside. Through the open window, Monica heard a shuffle of footsteps and the sound of things falling to the floor. Allison had caught a glimpse of herself in the mirror. Monica stifled a giggle, knowing the security cameras had recorded it all. And as Allison ran outside, phone pressed to her ear, dialing as if her life depended on it, Monica could only imagine how that conversation would have gone. "I want to report an assault." Pause. "No. I wasn't physically attacked, but I was poisoned or doused with something. I was stained and smelled." "Oh my God, the smell." Another pause. Then Allison's face twisted in anger. "No. I wasn't trespassing. What does that have to do with anything?" Monica actually had to bite her lip to keep from laughing. After a few minutes, a patrol car pulled up, and 2 officers got out. One of them was holding a notebook. Monica was exhausted, but always the responsible homeowner, and she met them at the fence before Allison could begin her story. The officers, Monica greeted with a small nod. "I assume this is about my neighbor." One of them sighed. "Ma'am, she claims you poisoned her." Monica raised an eyebrow. "Does she look poisoned? Or does she look like someone swimming in a pool she wasn't invited to?" The officer glanced at Allison, who was still scrubbing her arms with a rag, muttering angrily. Monica crossed her arms. "Do you want to see my security footage?" The moment the officers saw clear footage of Allison sneaking in, sliding into the pool, and then practically wallowing in her own arrogance, the situation flipped. One officer turned to Allison, expression flat. "Ma'am." Monica leaned against the doorframe, her sharp gaze following Allison's every move. The 2 officers stood between them, the tension in the air like a string about to snap. "Do you realize you're trespassing?" one officer asked, his tone calm but stern. Allison sneered. "Oh, please. It's a pool, not a bank vault." She crossed her arms, her disdain evident. The officer's brow twitched. "It's private property, ma'am." The second officer said nothing, just carefully closed his notebook, as if everything had been recorded. "She can press charges." His voice was even but cold. The color drained from Allison's face, or at least what remained under the bright dye. She turned to Monica with wild eyes. "You won't." Monica tilted her head, pretending to think. Maybe not today. But if you ever, I repeat, ever set foot in my yard again, you'll have to explain yourself to a judge." The officers exchanged looks. One of them tapped his pen on his notebook. "Sounds fair. I suggest you listen to her, ma'am." Allison gasped, her arms folded like a scolded child. But this time, she didn't protest. Because she knew she had lost. As the officers left, Monica stood on the porch, watching Allison walk briskly toward her front door. The door slammed shut with a bang that rattled the windows. But even through the glass, Monica could hear the angry screams, the opening and closing of drawers, and the rushing water. Allison was trying, in vain, to wipe away the evidence. And that, Monica thought, was the beauty of the little trick she had just pulled. The dye still wouldn't come off easily. It would take multiple washes. Maybe even a trip to the salon, to get it out of her hair completely. And the stench would linger for at least a day. Monica sighed slowly and contentedly. Justice. And just as she was about to go inside to sleep, her phone buzzed with a notification from the security app. She glanced down, expecting another motion alert. But instead, there was a clip. A video from just 10 minutes ago. Curious, she tapped the play button. The grainy footage showed Allison looking out the window, watching the street. Then completely losing her cool. She picked up a trash bag full of what looked like towels and clothes, and stuffed it into the trash can outside. The way she gagged when she did it made Monica laugh. She had officially broken Allison. And the best part? Allison never set foot in Monica's yard again. The next week was quiet and blissful. No wet footprints. No wine glasses left behind. No neighbors lounging in Monica's pool. Like she owned the place. Monica lived her days without a single worry. Every time she walked through her own backyard, she felt that same pride. Not just in her house, but in the fact that she had stood up for herself. Then about a week later, while Monica was watering her plants, she spotted a moving truck. At first, she didn't think anything of it. But then she saw the person standing on the porch. Arms folded, giving orders to the movers. Allison. Monica's lips parted in surprise. She was leaving. Monica remained where she was, watering can in hand, watching as the movers loaded the furniture out of the house. Allison looked as bitter as ever, pacing back and forth with her phone in her hand. And her golden hair was now a little tangled with orange. Monica bit back a smile. Good. Monica would never know the full story. Did Allison have plans to move all along? Or was the humiliation too much to bear? But either way, Monica didn't care. Because in the end, one thing was clear. Monica had won. Entitlement has a way of blinding people. Allison truly believed she could do whatever she wanted. The rules didn't apply to her. And Monica's silence was weakness. She was wrong. There's a fine line between being nice and being a doormat. Monica tried many times to draw the line. She was patient. She was reasonable. But when someone refuses to respect you, you have every right to make sure they never forget your name. And Allison? She will remember Monica for the rest of her life.